Am I the asshole for telling my husband he isn't as good of a dad as he thinks he is? My husband and I were separated during my pregnancy. He ended up getting custody of our 2-year-old son because I was unwell. I had postpartum psychosis. I moved back to my home country, got treatment, and have been saving as much money as possible so I could try to get my son back and divorce my husband. My sister-in-law kept in touch with me throughout the years and would send me pictures and videos of my son. She convinced her brother/my husband to contact me and helped us come to an agreement that I could slowly be reintroduced into our son's life. He has put a lot of conditions on this. I can't be alone with him, I only get a set time limit with him each day, I can't take him outside, I have to live here, etc. I've been following every single rule, but yesterday I finally had enough. My son wanted to keep playing after our time was over, and his nanny came to take him away. He was crying badly, and I tried to suggest they just leave him with me. The nanny was going to let him stay, but my husband told her to take him outside. After they left, I told him he wasn't as good of a dad as he thinks he is, and that he was punishing our son to hurt me. I've never seen him so angry, and he told me that I was one to talk. Since then, he's been giving me the cold shoulder. Am I the arsehole? Now in the comments, any scientist says, "You're the arsehole. Your husband has been there for him through the years. He is giving you a chance to get to know your son. Stop acting entitled and take it slow." You're the arsehole. This. I'd like to second this wholeheartedly. OP, it pained me to read your write-up, and I kept finding myself thinking, she can't be serious, can she? But alas, you were. Take this opportunity to quit being such an arsehole, get to know your child, and learn to be there for them as opposed to taking out your frustrations in a vindictive post. You're the arsehole. I'm getting a strong missing reasons feeling here. You state you are unwell without being specific about it, then you move to a different country. I'm sorry, but many would consider that abandonment. What kind of treatment is something you couldn't do while staying in the same country? I could understand a different state as a specialized treatment center can be out of state, but there's no info on what condition it is. You were gone for years. Years. How many years? You're mad that you have to live in the same area as your kid? You are mad that the person who has been doing all the heavy lifting has concerns about your behavior. To be blunt, your ex was given full custody, which is something courts usually don't do without reason. Your subsequent behavior does not cover you with glory. It also sounds like you were not sending child support either. Without more info, how are you different from any other deadbeat parent? I don't hear any real concern for your kid, but only about what you are owed in terms of getting parental props and entitlement. Frankly, you are not a parent. You are just a gamete donor who is fortunate that you get to see the kid after dipping out. And OP replies to that, I'm originally from the UK, where healthcare is free and I had family support, which I desperately needed, which is why I moved. The treatment was very expensive here, and since I knew I would eventually need money to fight a court case, it made the most sense for me to move instead of getting into debt to get treated. It wasn't an easy decision. I got treatment for 10 months. I reached out to ask if my husband would let me see my son, and he refused. So I spent the last 18 months saving as much as possible so I could take him to court. If I wasn't concerned about my son, I would have forced this through the courts. My lawyer was confident I could get custody, but it wouldn't be good for my son to be suddenly forced to be alone with someone he barely knows. Wait, so you leave for 10 months and you think he was just going to hand his baby off to you, and you have the audacity to judge, when in total, you've been gone for 28 months. Okay. You are aware that postpartum psychosis is the ailment that causes the baby killing, right? Are you seriously suggesting that someone with a mental condition that has been known to cause mothers to drown their own babies in an episode, to not get treatment and to stay with their baby without having had that treatment? All the more reason the father didn't want her close to the baby after 10 months. He couldn't have full proof that she was cured. The doctors cleared her? This isn't crap like PTSD or depression where it's all in your brain and doctors have to rely on patients being honest and not lying and acting. Postpartum is brain plus hormones. You can check if the patient is being honest by seeing whether improvement checks out with the blood work. Our next post is by user Curse You Buzz Lightyear, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my dad that he's an effing man-child for refusing to deal with my sister's first period? My parents are divorced. My mum lives about 2 hours away from my dad, his fiancée, and my sister. This week I visited home and stayed with my dad and sister. I get home at around 7 in the morning and see my dad off to work and sister off to school. At around noon, I wake up to a phone call from my mum telling me that I need to go pick my sister up from school. I ask what's going on, and she tells me that my sister started her period and left her go bag at her place. I say okay, get in my car, lay down some stuff, and start heading to her school. On the way there, I get a call from my dad, and I'm told to not worry about it and go home. I'm told that my dad's fiancée will take care of it after she gets off work. I tell him that I'm not busy right now and can get her. He tells me that I'm a man and I don't need to handle it, and I should let a woman handle a woman's problem. I'm kinda dumbfounded, but hey, if his fiancée is on her way over, I get to go back to sleep for the rest of the day. I ask how long it'll be till she's there so I can keep my mum in the loop. He says these exact words. She gets off at 3, the school will give her some new pants for the time being. Which is crazy, right? And I tell him that's ridiculous and I'm going to pick her up. He legitimately tells me no and tells me to turn around, and I say I'm going to get my sister and hang up before he argues. I get her, I ask if she has any feminine products at home and she says no. So I take her to the store and buy her some pads and tampons of different flows, and I got her some of the foods my girlfriend wants when she's on the rag. We get home, and I tell her to wake me if she needs anything, and I go back to sleep. An hours later, I wake up to banging on the door. It's my dad, and he's yelling at me for defying him, and taking care of my sister. He then tells me it's disgusting that I bought her stuff, and that I'm her brother, and I shouldn't be involved in her sexual health. I tell him that he's being ridiculous. He tells me that I need to never do things like this again. I tell him he's acting like a frickin' man-child. He goes off and kicks me out. So I pack up and go to my mum's, where she tells me that I shouldn't have said what I said even if it was true. Even my girlfriend told me that I overreacted and shouldn't have sworn at my dad. Am I the asshole? Dad's just being a see you in the Northern Territory, and I don't blame you for calling him an effing man-baby in this situation, because he was being a man-baby. His stupid views about this situation, i.e. only women should be looking after women, men don't need to when they shouldn't do it, are ridiculously outdated. Screw this guy, he's an asshole, not much else to say. But you're not the asshole for that one, OP, so not the asshole. Now in the comments, Sarcastic Absent says, not the asshole. That's a very gross and unhealthy mentality for your father to have. You did the right thing. This was nowhere near an overreaction. Someone needed to call him on it finally. Any man who thinks periods are shameful or none of their concern has no business going near a vagina. Since when are periods part of sexual health? It's part of being a woman. Nothing more, nothing less. OP is an enlightened man who took good care of his sister. I wouldn't pay much attention to a man who was marrying a woman who was only 6 years older than his son. And I'm just curious why he thinks a period is sexual health and why that differs from regular health. But anyway, not the asshole. You were just being a decent human. I think you already know that though. Well, it's because he probably has only been taught about the sexual purposes of that particular part. So if he ever hears so much as the name, all he knows about is that it's used for sex. All this is regular health, and OP is most certainly not the asshole for this because he's right. It's immature and childish to be disgusted to that level by a period. And because it's childish to be a father and still think that that part only exists for sexual purposes. I'd love to say that I can't imagine being 11 and stuck at school for hours after getting a surprise period, but unfortunately I don't have to imagine it. OP is such a hero for coming through for his sister. And our next post is by user The One Who Can Relate, titled, Am I the asshole for calling my stepson a bully to his face and in front of the whole family? My stepson Austin, 19, has a cousin aged 14 who has a burn scar that covers his arm and neck. Austin picks on him constantly with hurtful comments. Some of the stuff he says is, "Are you still able to make friends looking like that?" Or, "How are you going to get a girl to go out with you when you're looking like that?" And more. It's infuriating because my wife and her family think this form of teasing is okay, since that's his cousin. But I couldn't handle sitting there watching Austin treat his cousin like that. I truly felt disgusted as I had a burn scar from a truck accident, but it's concealed. So it's not the same, but it struck a nerve in me. Plus, my nephew-in-law clearly felt awful, but nobody cared enough to notice. I brought it up with my wife and told her how I felt about Austin's blatant bullying, and she called me silly for using the word bullying. He's just teasing his cousin, as in normal stuff between boys. I said I won't stay quiet next time he does it, and she shrugged me off. We were at my in-laws having dinner when Austin asked me to pass him the salad plate. His cousin was right next to him, so we tried passing the plate to Austin, but Austin got grossed out and yelled at him to not touch the plate with his burnt hand. I was stunned, and expectedly, no one said anything. I told Austin that what he was doing was wrong, that he would never look good by making someone else look bad, and that's what bullies do, and he was being a bully. He was shocked, and the family were quiet as I continued that if he thought doing this stuff will make him look superior, then that's a sorry state to be in, and it shows how it clearly reflects his own insecurities, and he should find a healthy outlet for these insecurities, instead of feeding his confidence off of other people's unfortunate circumstances. I said his cousin has no control over his injury, but he, on the other hand, has control over how he treats others. Austin couldn't even look at me. He got up and rushed upstairs. Mother-in-law followed after giving me a nasty look. Dinner was awkward and no one ate. My wife was highly upset, saying that Austin was just messing with his cousin. But I said all I saw was mistreatment and an offender getting away with it. She said still, I shouldn't have called him a bully to his face and in front of everyone, and then doubled down and said that he has insecurities. She stated just like her family, Austin was shocked, taken by surprise, and won't be blamed for no longer seeing me the same. And that since he apologized to his cousin, then it's my turn to apologize to him. But I said I won't. They are both sulking. And edit to add, I feel like I just had to put the following for more context. Mother-in-law said a couple of things. Number one, I, as someone who is married in, shouldn't get involved in private family matters. And number two, she suggested that since I was shamelessly willing to call Austin a bully in front of the family, then Lord knows how poorly I treat him at home, and she insisted on taking Austin in. Yep, this family just sucks all around, and it seems like Austin is just a product of his environment then. If that's the way the in-laws treat him, and this is the way that your partner enables him, it's no wonder he continues to act this way and think of himself as the victim. It's weird that you're married into this family, yet you don't get to be involved in private family matters. You've committed yourself to this family as much as you possibly can, yet you're still an outsider. Just goes to show that this is in-group bullying mentality that the family doesn't care about, and they are collectively, in my opinion, all assholes, your wife included. I'm gonna say you're not the asshole for calling him a bully. Maybe not the best time and place for sure, but Austin's 19 years old. He ran off and had a sook after all of that. A 19-year-old being a sook after being called out for being a bully is just so weak. Not the asshole, OP. Now in the comments, Sepher32 says, Dear Lord, not the asshole. How is everyone else okay with this? Good for you for being the only compassionate or mature individual in the room. And edit, also a 19-year-old adult bullying a 14-year-old child? More of the same boys will be boys bullcrap we see all too often, excusing atrocious actions. And OP replied, quote, how was everyone else okay with this? I don't know why, but maybe because I was the one who pointed it out, and since my in-laws aren't fond of me, they're accusing me of being out of line and stepping into relatives' issues. I put quotations because my in-laws always make it painfully clear that I'm not Austin's dad, but just a guy who married in. To add, they have a good relationship with Austin's dad, who is in my opinion a complete POS. And someone replies to OP, "Your wife is an asshole who raised an asshole." Someone replies to that, "Whole family of assholes if you ask me, with the possible exception of the cousin. Poor kid. I personally don't think this sort of behavior should be tolerated from family members any more than classmates or peers. I love my siblings, but I have all kinds of emotional scars from how they used to torment me to help me grow a thicker skin. They would push me to the breaking point, and then I'd be scolded and punished for reacting. It didn't matter if I managed to politely ask them to stop, they'd keep going until they got me to react. This didn't teach me ways to keep my cool. It taught me it didn't matter if I kept my cool, so I may as well lose it from the first. OP is definitely not the asshole, and I bet the cousin will remember this forever, just like I remember the people who stood up for me." Jock says, "Not the asshole, but your wife sure is defending her asshole son. Her parents included. It's not hard to see where the stepson's behavior comes from. Not the asshole." Consistent Leopard says, "You called a bully to his face, and as is usually the case with bullies, he couldn't take it and ran away. Austin is 19 years old and should be well aware that no one deserves to be treated the way he treated his cousin. You do not owe Austin an apology." Am I the asshole for not letting my ex-husband have my deceased daughter's ashes? I'm an Indian woman who came to the United States on a student's visa and met my ex-husband, Dean. My family wasn't happy about the relationship, but eventually relented when they realized we were serious about each other. I got pregnant a few months into our marriage and gave birth to our daughter, Asha. After I gave birth, I developed PPD, and as a result, our marriage suffered and never really recovered. I was on antidepressants. 2 years after her birth, my ex-husband got close to his co-worker Laura, and they began a 2-year torrid affair. When he eventually got caught, he apologized for hurting my feelings, but claimed he was in love with Laura. We divorced, and I was left in the US all alone without any emotional or family support. The divorce happened in 2017, and we shared 50-50 custody of Asha. In February 2020, I decided to visit my family in India, as my extended family had never met my daughter. The original plan was to stay in India for 3 months, but the plans changed as the world got locked down. One day, my daughter complained of uneasiness and stomach pain after she had her usual lunch. I gave her a digestive enzyme and asked her to rest. When I went to check in on her an hour later, she was gone. I still don't know what happened that day, but after that moment, everything was a blur. My sister informed my ex-husband, but because borders were shut, he couldn't come to India for the rituals. I cremated my girl according to Hindu rituals, and later immersed her ashes in the Ganges as per our customs. I have refused to take any calls from my ex in the past year. I am still dealing with grief. My ex has reached out to me and wants my address to get some of her ashes. I let my sister convey to him that the ashes have been disposed of as per customs. He is now furious and wants me to come back to the United States and give him some of her toys. I have planned on never going back. He already has some of her clothes and toys, and I refuse to directly talk to him. That part of my life is over and done. Am I the asshole? To answer a few questions. 1. We were told she suffered a cardiac arrest. She was already dead when she was brought to the nearest hospital. My ex was sent all the details in the hospital documents. 2. He and his family were sent the Zoom link for the funeral. 3. He already has half of her belongings. 4. I didn't keep her ashes. It was disposed of the day after her cremation in the Ganges, as per Hindu religious beliefs. 5. He was informed of all the rituals that were going to take place beforehand. He probably didn't understand them. 6. No, I wasn't in contact with him, my family was. 7. The reason he had no problem with me taking Asha to India was because in 2019 he took her to Russia to meet his grandparents. 8. When we left for India, it was early Feb. We didn't realize COVID was going to be a global pandemic. And 9. My ex's heritage is Russian Jewish. He didn't follow his religion when we were married, and I raised her Hindu. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. 1. The fact that I didn't save some of the ashes for him. I refused to talk to him after she died and let my family do the talking. And 2, because I failed to consider that he might have wanted some of the ashes. As per our customs, we immerse the ashes for the soul's mukti, liberation. Now in the comments, Jeepers Creepers says, "You are dealing with a lot, and I don't think this sub is the place for you right now. That said, you asked and you're the asshole. I understand you're grieving the loss of your daughter, but so is your ex. You say what happened to Asher on the day she got sick is a mystery to you, and you were there. Imagine how he feels that he saw his daughter off on what was supposed to be a 3-month vacation, is then told she's dead, is then told that her remains have been disposed of, and can't even get you to talk to him. If I were him, I would half suspect that Asher is still alive and the whole thing is a ruse to cut her off from him. Please consider talking directly to him. It may not be as painful as you were anticipating. In fact, it may help you grieve with the one person who can understand how it feels to have lost your daughter. You're the asshole. He is her father. He was an active part of her life and you were being vindictive. His affair had nothing to do with him being a father and wanting to have a part of his daughter. I hope you can live with yourself for being so horrible to a grieving parent. You had no right to unilaterally decide what to do with her remains. Your customs don't override his. You should have given him half of the ashes. I'm trying so hard not to be harsh, because OP has suffered an unimaginable loss, but yeah, every bit of this screams vindictive and payback for her ex's affair. He lost a child too, and not only that, he didn't get to hear it from OP, and he had zero involvement in how her remains were handled, and now he can't even get OP to talk to him. He sucks for his affair, but like you said, that has zero influence on his ability to be a father. OP is being incredibly selfish about this. Not the asshole. I don't understand all the "you're the assholes" here. There is no provision for ashes to be separated. Had she passed away while in his custody, would he give you anything to cremate? And if he needs something to remember her by, he can take anything that's ashes left behind in America. And edit, I see mostly comments that don't understand the Hindu religion. Dividing the ashes is equal to dismemberment. Had Asher died in the ex's custody, could OP, stuck in India, reasonably ask for 50% of the body? Absurd, isn't it? Now, let's not talk about absurd requests. Had Asher died in ex's custody, she would have been buried in a land 7 seas away from her mother. By this spreading of the ashes, it's more fair that none of the parents have Asher, but her memories, like toys, etc., which OP says is distributed equally among them. And back to the post, OP says, "I realize that people believe I'm the asshole. I understand and accept the judgment. I didn't ask for advice, and no, I'm not going to talk to him ever again. We are done. He can hate me, I don't care. Since he didn't get to be with her in her last days, I'll be sending him a pair of her shoes that she wore during her India visit. My family will contact him regarding the same. Me not talking to him personally is nothing out of the normal. Even when Asher was alive, I kept communication to what the court stipulated. No chit-chat, no weather talk, it was just business. We communicated via email, and I have no reason to talk to him now. People can call this being vindictive. I call this my boundary." And our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my husband I will stop locking the bathroom door when he stops barging in?" My husband has been barging into the bathroom lately when I'm inside, and for no reason at all. I'd tell him I was going to use the bathroom, then a couple of minutes later he'd barge in and ask what I was doing. Like, he already knows I'm in there peeing, etc., and it's not like I was taking too long for him to be worried. I told him I don't like how he barges in like that. He said it was no big deal and that he was checking in on me when I've only been in there for 2 minutes. I'm a private person, and like any other human, I don't like being walked in on in the bathroom. So I asked him to please stop barging in and respect my privacy. He said fine. Well, yesterday he did it again. Literally barged in after I said I was going to use the bathroom, and he went inside for a couple of seconds, then walked out. I followed him and had an argument with him about how he kept disrespecting my privacy. He brushed me off, so my next visit to the bathroom, I locked the door. 2 minutes later, he was about to barge in, but didn't know the door was locked and yelled outside, asking if I locked the door and why I'd lock it. I kept him waiting till I was finished, then walked out and told him why I locked the door, and it's because of his constant barging and repeated violation of my privacy. He laughed sarcastically, asking, "Are you being serious right now? I'm your husband, and for F's sake, why are you acting like I'm your roommate and lock the door?" I said it's because of his behavior, and he asked me to please stop locking the door, as it was hurtful of me to do that to him, but I told him until he stops barging in, I won't be leaving the door unlocked. He got pissed, called me unbelievable, then stormed outside to smoke. Now in the comments, not the asshole. It kinda reads to me like he's trying to catch you at something. Your boundaries are more than appropriate. Yeah, this seems super weird to me. I'd maybe somewhat understand if OP was a recovering drug addict or something, but this is abnormal as hell. Yeah, when I was using, I would 100% hide in the bathroom from my significant other. Even then, he didn't barge in, lol. Yeah, my mum was a bad drug addict, and locked bathroom doors in my house always just made my heart sink because it meant that she was using again. Now, my little sister has issues with self-harm, so they do the same thing for different reasons. If neither of those are an issue for OP, I see no reason for the husband's behavior. Have they been married long, and has this just started? It seems like either a trust thing or maybe a fetishy thing. You say this is a recent change in his behavior. He obviously thinks he's going to catch you doing something. He's being paranoid and suspicious, and it's time for him to explain why. You are not the asshole, maintain your boundaries, and call out his inappropriate behavior every single time. Yeah, the story as told is super weird. Who would suddenly expect to do this and not raise a massive question marks about it? He thinks she's cheating, doing drugs, taking sneaky pregnancy tests? I just can't imagine how he thinks he's not going to have to explain his sudden need to be in the bathroom with her, and then say he's hurt. Not the asshole. Additionally, sometimes people project. So if he thinks you're in there doing something bad, cheating on the phone, etc., maybe he's the one doing that. Walk in on him next time. I sorta hope this is all because he's taking sneaky pregnancy tests and projecting that. Not the asshole. What the hell is wrong with that dude? The bathroom should always be a place where you have some privacy. He's extra controlling, and that is unhealthy. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for defending my son's decision to not invite his friend to his birthday party over a food allergy?" Hi everyone. I won't be going into specifics with regards to names or ages. So my son has a birthday party every year. At this party, he always has food that consists of one of his favorite flavors of cake, such as chocolate, pineapple, etc. This year, he has decided that he wants the theme to be strawberry-flavored food. Now, I'm sure most people will agree with me that having birthday parties with a food theme isn't an issue. However, in this case, it is. My son has a friend in his class. This friend has been to every birthday party my son has had. The problem is that this friend has a strawberry allergy, so you can see where this issue would stem from. My son said that he wants to have a strawberry-flavored food theme for his party, and that his friend likely won't be able to come due to his allergy. I told my son that if that's what he wants, then he's allowed to do that, since it is his birthday. My son told his friend about his plans, and according to my son, he made it clear that him not inviting him wasn't to be malicious, and that the only reason he wasn't invited was due to his food allergy. According to my mum, his friend thinks I'm being an ass by supporting my son's decision to not invite this friend, since she believes that a birthday party needs to be inclusive. Am I the asshole in this case? And edit, the child's allergy isn't life-threatening, however, if he were to eat a strawberry, he would have to go home to say the very least. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I may be the asshole in this case, since some people may argue that I should make my son have a different theme for his birthday party so that his friend is able to come. Now in the comments, Yasmin Eats Apples says, Sure. He has a friend with a well-known strawberry allergy, and this little dude just happens to want a strawberry-themed birthday. Not just a cake, that would be easily resolvable, but a whole-ass theme. Lamau, if this is how he handles his fights with his friends, it's a super underhanded strategy. Wasn't meant to be malicious? Come on. No one's stupid enough to believe that. Like, yeah, sure it's his birthday, so it's whatever, but for him to pretend he's not doing it on purpose? Everyone sucks here except for the allergic kid. Poor thing. I mean, if OP's kid does not like his friend, he could just say so. We do not get along, and I don't feel like inviting you to my party is acceptable. I refuse to make food that won't kill you, and I'm not even open to the idea of finding a solution so that you could come. Is not. You're the asshole. You raised a punk and let him hurt another kid. Either birthday boy hates the kid and is doing this to be an asshole, or he likes the kid and is so self-absorbed he didn't give a crap about excluding his friend. Or, this allergic kid could be an asshole to him? Why are you making such assumptions without knowing enough? If the kid wants the party because he likes strawberry, it's fine. If the kid doesn't want the allergic kid in his party, it is also fine. No kid should be forced to be friends with someone they don't like. You're the asshole because you didn't even think about just buying a damn cupcake of a different flavor for the kid with the allergy, or even contacting the friend's parent and saying, look, this is the situation, and letting the parents help include their kid. I know plenty of parents who will happily send their kid with a sack lunch or whatever, just so the kid isn't left out. I too was wondering why a cupcake or a few couldn't be bought to accommodate the allergy. I wondered if his choice was specifically to exclude this kid. Are the two fighting? That was my first thought as well. He knew about this allergy, yet chose strawberry of all things. Strawberry doesn't really make sense to base an entire meal and dessert on. And our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for refusing to let my family meet my daughter after all of them dropped out of my wedding upon finding out my wife was pregnant? I come from a conservative Christian family. All my family members were and are involved in the church and have church-based jobs. When they met my wife, they loved her and embraced her as their own. We dated for 2 years and discovered that she was pregnant after we got engaged. Invitations were already given at the time, and we decided to still have the wedding on the date when my wife was 5 months in. My family were furious when they found out my wife was pregnant. They asked if we even still considered having a wedding. I said why not, but they were very upset, especially my mum and dad, who said they've always been known for their decency and good Christian values, and weren't willing to let this stain their reputation. As in my wife and I getting married while pregnant. They officially dropped out and refused to negotiate, saying it was done, and I have only myself to blame for this outcome and should move the wedding out of town. I was hurt, but I tried to change their minds and checked in with other members, but my brother said that he had no intentions to look like a joke in front of his fellow church members and dropped out. My aunt pretended to be sick and said she may not be able to make it. She's 100% healthy. My cousin said he had a business trip and stopped his wife and kids from attending, and my uncle cussed me out, tore the invitation, and kicked me out. I felt terrible with no family members of my own to support me and share my joy at my wedding. I even broke down crying after the ceremony. I haven't spoken to them for months, and then got busy with my 4-week-old daughter. My cousin reached out to hand me gifts and well wishes for the birth of my daughter sent from my family. I returned everything. He sat with me on behalf of the family, saying I shouldn't have returned the gifts that were from my family, who wants to see and hopefully be involved in my daughter's life. He said Mum is longing to meet her grandbaby, and everyone else is wanting to visit soon to celebrate my daughter's life. I asked him this question. I said, wasn't my daughter the reason why the entire lot of them abandoned my wedding? He just stared grudgingly as I went on about how they treated my daughter as something to be ashamed of and hide. My daughter at some point will ask about the wedding, and I have no intentions on lying to her. He replied saying he guaranteed I got it all wrong, and no matter what goes down between us, I can never deny that my daughter is their granddaughter, niece, etc., and they are her family. He asked that I arrange for them to visit, but I refused. He kept pressing the idea, but I shut it down. My wife says I should let them come, but I still refused. Now in the comments, Greek American Dom says, "Not the asshole. Let your family know that, like a good Christian, you are willing to forgive, but they have sinned against you and God. Jesus' highest teaching after loving God is to love everyone as he loves us, including sinners, non-believers, and enemies. Their actions towards you were not about love, but ego and pride. They were more worried about what others might think than simply loving you and your family. Jesus also taught not to judge others. That's the whole point of, let he who has no sin cast the first stone. They certainly cast that stone. Let them know that you feel that you have done your work to be good with God and have nothing to apologize to them for. Have they? Until they come to you with a genuine apology that admits exactly how they wronged you and sinned against you and your wife, keep them away." And OP replies, "Indeed. Despite what they've done, I haven't changed my views about my religion as a Christian myself. I know that it was more about their reputation and name than anything else, really." And someone replies to that, "I am not Christian, and a vengeful sort. You should hold a huge christening and purposely exclude your family in the family church. And when asked why the family won't be there, explain that they shunned the wedding because of the pregnancy, so they are not in support of your child." Finance Remarkable 881 says, "Not the asshole. Keep them away from your daughter. You're right. They are toxic. My friend had a similar thing happen, but let the family back into his life. He found out years later that the family would pull his daughter aside from when she was about 4 up until when she was about 12 or 13 to tell her that she was an idiot and a sinner. Awful stuff. He immediately cut off his family again when he found out, but it really screwed his daughter up for a while until he got her therapy. This OP, I hope you strongly consider the damage your family could do to your daughter. One can be Christian without being judgmental, but I don't think your family has figured that out. Congrats on your marriage and the birth of your daughter. Long and happy life to the three of you. I personally think that they reap what they sow. Plain and simple. They ditched you as a family because of your daughter. Now you need to protect her from them. What if they pull this on her? What if she does something they don't like or they consider a stain on their reputation? No, they do not deserve to meet her. They ended that relationship themselves, not you. Good riddance to bad rubbish. I have in-laws who use religion to try to control and shame and judge me. I've walked away and am so much happier not being around any of them. So I know where you're coming from. Am I the asshole for allowing my husband to harass my cousin? So my 26 female husband, 30 male, has fun trolling people and getting under their skin online and WhatsApp, but he's never rude in person, just in the cyber world. It's just his personality. We have this cousin chat, and one cousin, Samuel, 30 male, has always been sensitive to my husband's antics. He did directly tell my husband he doesn't appreciate him making fun of his beliefs, politics, appearance, just for laughs. But my husband continued to do it, and Samuel eventually just took it and remained quiet. We were all at peace for about a year, and my husband continued to make jokes, but Samuel ignored them. My husband made another joke about Samuel when Samuel's wife, AITA, 25 female, stepped in, saying she didn't appreciate us using her husband as a punching bag, and everyone on the chat is rude for not stopping my husband. AITA has always been a hothead. Someone offends somebody else, she always steps in and attacks. She doesn't let people fight their own battles, and it's annoying. So my cousins and I made a private chat talking about how Samuel is too sensitive and AITA shouldn't be so crazy. Somehow AITA found out about this and messaged me. Here is part of the messages which I want people's opinions. AITA says, "Your husband is rude, but you are worse. You always post messages on Facebook saying, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say it. Be kind, love first. But when me and my husband directly say your husband is offending us, you just say it's his personality. Me. It is just his personality. It's your fault you don't understand everyone's relationship. Everyone got along until you came. AITA. What are you talking about? My husband has always disliked your husband. Me. Well, he didn't say anything for a year. It means he's okay with it. It is just you. AITA. Not true, but okay. Let's say it's just me. I'm offended by your husband. You think it's just his personality, right? I'm saying it's hurtful. You could have private messaged me and apologized, or at least asked if I was okay if you cared about peace and kindness so much. Me. I have nothing to apologize for. My husband and I didn't do anything wrong. You just don't understand our dynamics and always try to pick a fight. It went on for a bit, but then AITA eventually let it go. So Reddit, what do you think? Should I have reached out and apologized for my husband's behavior? My family is saying AITA is just crazy and Samuel is just overly sensitive. Now in the comments, Shining Spark says, "You're the asshole and your husband is an asshole." 1. It's not his personality, it's him being an asshole. 2. Samuel wasn't okay with it. He just realized that no one was on his side and decided to take it to keep the peace. 3. AITA is right, your husband is mean. And 4. You both owe AITA and Samuel an apology. I think she's an asshole too. What nice person lets their someone else be harassed and bullied and thinks, "Aw, that's a completely normal personality trait online from their bully. Let's not stick up for the victim, but continue to shower the bully with love and affection through marriage. You're the asshole." No one, but OP is not a nice person. Nice people don't advertise how nice they are. They demonstrate it with their behavior. Only complete assholes feel the need to constantly talk about being nice. Sagery says, "You're the asshole 1,000 times over. I hate it when people act like assholes and then get mad when others are upset by this. It's just his personality. Is not an excuse to bully his cousin, especially after he told your husband he didn't like it. You even called it harass in the title. His wife had every right to stand up for her husband and to call you out on your hypocrisy. You said the cousin didn't fight his own battles, but he tried telling your husband he didn't like it and got made fun of for it, for acting like a mature adult. You and your husband are most definitely the assholes here, and I thank my lucky stars that I'm not related to you." Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for removing my baby's earrings immediately after my wife pierced them?" My wife and I have a 2-month-old daughter, Alicia. We've been having the piercing debate since before she was born. She comes from a culture where it's the normal thing, but I'm just not comfortable with a painful process like that and would prefer to wait until she's older so she can choose whether to go through that for herself. While we still hadn't made a decision, my wife went for a day with her family with the baby while I had a few things I needed to sort out. When I got home, the first thing I noticed was that Alicia had a pair of gold studs. I demanded to know what had happened, and she said they decided to make a day of it and just get them done. I felt pure rage and immediately removed the earrings and threw them away. This enraged my wife, and she said removing them was totally disrespectful. She slept in the spare room last night and isn't speaking to me at all. As far as I'm concerned, I did the right thing. She got them pierced without asking me, or more importantly, asking Alicia. So I took them out because our baby doesn't need bits of metal sticking out of her ears. Am I the asshole? Now in the comments, Genji's wife says, "Not the asshole. I'm of the opinion that a cultural norm that impedes another person's bodily autonomy is not a cultural norm worth following, especially ones that can cause long-term damage. My ears were pierced as a baby, and I really wish they hadn't been. The holes are uneven because my ears grew over time, and one hole is constantly painful and agitated and never heals over. It's likely damaged from the abomination that is a piercing gun. It would have been nice to make the choice myself and be able to go to a proper piercing shop to do so. Instead, I have constant problems from having a piercing gun used on me when I could not consent. Your wife knew your feelings on this and did it behind your back as a better to ask forgiveness than permission move. She can cry about disrespect all she wants, but it was disrespect to you, the child's other parent, to do this behind your back, especially for something entirely aesthetic with multiple potential downsides if done incorrectly. Your daughter's well-being is more important than her having a shiny rock in her ears. I'm also questioning what the hell kind of place they got her pierced at. 2 months is incredibly young to get piercings done, and chances are it was done with a piercing gun which can cause horrible damage to the ears. I know firsthand, unfortunately. Piercing guns also can't be properly cleaned. They aren't a safe option, period. Your wife needs to put aside her own wants in favor of your child's safety and well-being. And someone replies to that, "You've summed this up perfectly. I'm so sorry you've had all these problems with your own piercings. I'm really astounded at all the you're the assholes. There are so many problems that almost always arise from babies having piercings similar to the ones that you have mentioned. I worked in a doctor's reception for a few years, and you saw all sorts, from wonky piercings to kids who needed actual surgery to need them removed. In my opinion, OP is not the asshole. Also, I'm no expert, but won't the piercings just heal now if properly looked after? Without the earrings, they'll close up, and she can just get them re-pierced later on. They probably won't even leave a visible scar based on how quickly he removed them. In the case of OP's daughter, it'll probably heal a bit slower than normal because piercing guns cause some tissue damage from the force, but it will heal. However, I'd be more concerned with infection because piercing guns are pretty much impossible to sterilize, and taking the earrings out leaves her with an open wound in both ears. Best to go check with the doctor on what to keep an eye out for and how to take care of this. Sibylle says, not the asshole. Whether or not anyone here agrees or disagrees with the morality of getting a baby's ears pierced, the problem is that the mum went behind the dad's back about something they couldn't agree on. It was a big deal to the dad. This kind of thing needs 2 yeses to go through. Mum blatantly disregarded dad. That is not a respectful marriage. Our next post is titled, "Am I the arsehole for not trying a bite of my mother-in-law's food, even though it's considered rude where they're from?" My husband and I went to a dinner party planned by his mother, presumably just as a little get-together. This wasn't the first time I had met them, as we had been married for about a year, but this was the first dinner party I've attended. My husband is Asian/white, and I am African American if that matters. When we get there, everything is going well up until his mother and father announce it's dinner time. So we help set up the plates, and once everyone sits down, my mother-in-law announces she cooked a new dish that she's excited for us to try. My husband's family all sit down to eat, including me. We're about 15 to 20 minutes into the dinner when my mother-in-law taps my shoulder, asking why I haven't made myself a plate yet. I explained to her that I was actually not in the mood to eat, but everything looked delicious. She goes quiet for a second before going on a rant about how she didn't take so long to prepare, grocery shop, cook, and set the meals just for me not to eat any of it. I looked awkwardly to my husband and he just shrugged, clearly fearful of his mum. One of his cousins chimed in to say that the least I could do is take a small bite. It wouldn't hurt. I shook my head, saying my stomach hurt and I would not be forcing myself to eat anything for the sake of anyone's feelings, and that I don't just eat anyone's cooking. Mother-in-law accused me of accusing her of being unclean, to which I said she was taking my words out of context. She then spat some stuff about how I'm not a good wife to my husband since I absolutely refuse to eat Asian cooking, and I'm too American anyways. I didn't say much back. Dinner was pretty awkward after that, and my husband told me that I should have just tried a bite. I told him I hadn't meant to be rude. I was taught by my own mother not to just eat anyone's cooking, and I refused to be forced to eat something I didn't want to eat. Am I the arsehole? Edit. Some of you are asking why my mother raised me not to eat just anyone's cooking. Here's the explanation. When I was younger, my mother ate food that some of my father's family prepared, and so did I. Stuff was coming out of both ends for both of us. She never did it again. Now in the comments, Pink Starburst 757 says, "You're the asshole. I don't see how saying I don't eat just anyone's cooking could be anything but an insult. Did you not know food would be served?" I'm wondering, does OP usually go to dinner parties and not eat anything? And is this the first time she's been called out? If OP has a phobia that is keeping her from eating other people's cooking, she needs to explain the situation before the dinner party, and ask if it's okay for her to come and either not eat or bring her own food. Although depending on the group and host, it may be better just to stay home. "I don't eat just anyone's cooking" is such a poor choice of words. It sounds deliberately snobby and rude to an almost cartoonish degree. I'm having a hard time picturing a real live person saying this in the present day. The implied subtext is, I don't trust you to be hygienic in your kitchen. I trust some people to cook for me, but not you. OP managed to make declining to eat any food like 10 times more rude. If she'd said apologetically that, due to childhood trauma, she pretty much never eats food that isn't cooked in her own kitchen, that would at least make her not eating seem a little bit less like a personal affront. What she said had the opposite effect. Yikes. I hope it was just very clumsy wording on OP's part and not deliberately cruel. You're the asshole, obviously. I really wanted to say not the asshole, but your reasoning of I don't just eat anyone's cooking is a special kind of cringeworthy. I am adamantly against the concept of you must eat the food provided even if you don't like it for the sake of politeness, but damn, your reason for not even tasting the food is that your mother-in-law cooked it. Yeah, that's just rude, mean, cruel, and tactless. You're the asshole. Edit to add, also, are you really expecting us to believe that it is normal in African American culture to not eat food anyone but yourself has prepared? That seems unlikely. Or is it a you thing because your mother-in-law is Asian? Yeah, I was right there on OP for not being the asshole until that sentence too. And as for culture, damn right that's not the way it goes, for the most part at least. I thought they were the asshole the whole way through. Even if you were full from something else, 2 things. You went to a dinner party. Full? You should be expected to eat food when invited to eat food. On top of that, it is just a bite. I hate cheese, and my friend's dad served something with cheese, but I ate about half of it. Wasn't a big fan, but I still ate it. Just eat. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for cancelling a couple of streaming services and telling my wife to get a job if she wants them back?" I, 32 male, have been married to my wife, 33 female, for close to 5 years. We have 2 children, 3 male and 1.5 female. When we got married, we both had jobs. However, maybe about a year after we were married, my wife tearfully confessed to me that she was miserable at her job and wanted to quit. She told me that her boss was treating her like garbage and that she woke up every morning wanting to vomit. She legitimately seemed dejected, and so I told her to quit and to find another job where she would be treated better. She quit. I expected her to go out and start looking for something else, but she didn't seem too eager. Whenever I gently brought it up, she responded, "I'm just trying to figure out my next move. Stop pressuring me." Not long after, she got pregnant with our son, and then while he was still very young, she got pregnant with our daughter. A few months after she was born, when I asked my wife what her plans were job-wise, she finally just said, "I don't want to go back to work. You make enough for us to get by. Just let me be a wife and a mother." I told her that I was concerned that I don't actually make enough to give our family as good of a life as I'd like, but she insisted that we can make it work. I have to admit, she's probably a model homemaker and mum. When I wake up for work in the morning, there's always freshly brewed coffee and breakfast waiting for me. The house is always clean, and other than yard work and repairs, I basically don't have to do anything around the house. And she's a great mother to our kids. I'm quite lucky in many ways. However, money is way tighter than I'd like. We are barely saving anything, and I'm not even able to meet my employer's match on my 401k in order to have enough for us to get by. We are living lean, eating beans and rice for dinner a couple times a week, etc. I don't feel as if I signed up for this. We were both working when we got married, and I never thought we'd have to live on just my income. I've tried to talk to her about going back to work, even part-time, to help our financial situation several times, but she just won't hear it. Recently, when I was going through our expenses, I saw that we were signed up for 5 streaming services. I kept Hulu and Netflix because they had more child-based programming for our son and our daughter when she gets a little older, but cancelled HBO and Discovery Plus because they are pretty exclusively for adults. I kept Shudder because it's cheap and I like horror. When I told my wife about it, she got angry and said that I should have talked to her first, that she had shows that she was watching on both of the services that I'd cancelled. I just responded, well, get a job and you can pay for them. She hated that. I think it was fair, but she obviously doesn't see it that way. Am I the asshole? Now in the comments, not the asshole, but keep in mind childcare is expensive. If she goes to work, chances are one salary will be eaten up by childcare. And OP replies, that's a good point. I work a pretty non-traditional schedule, and so would be able to watch the kids while my wife is at work for a good portion of the time. We'd still have to pay for some childcare, but we'd still come out ahead by a good bit. And if she took a part-time job, we should be able to completely maneuver around my schedule. Yeah, 3 and 1.5 is not when I would have this discussion, but if you really have done the math, that helps. This is clearly a conversation that you should be having, but in the planning stages. Having 2 kids with someone when you're not on the same page is not a great plan. Also, you should have at least talked to her before cancelling. You kept the one you liked and didn't let her have time to finish what she was watching. So a little bit of an asshole move, but you need to get on the same page about money. I think the problem here is less about the actual streaming services, though I do get that it's a dick move, but about the actual money and OP's resentment that his wife is not willing to help contribute to the house finances. He doesn't seem to understand that what she does is a lot of work and makes her happy. But she also doesn't seem to understand how tight money is. His built-up resentment spilled out over the fact that his wife was unhappy that he had cancelled some streaming services because she doesn't financially contribute. Eating beans and rice certainly is the driving point to know that money is too tight right now. Kids cannot have beans and rice a couple times a week as their main meal. They won't get the necessary nutrients. Edit, the amount of people saying I'm wrong and that as long as they're adding more vegetables and sauces and this and that, then they're getting nutrients. Well, that isn't the case. We need to run off exactly what OP said. They said just rice and beans. It will sustain you, but these 2 items do not give all of the nutrients a growing child needs. My point stands. Cat Got Your Tongue says, everyone sucks here. Wife sucks for just deciding to perpetually be a stay-at-home parent regardless of what you feel or whether it is in the best interest of the family. You suck for acting like you have sole control of all spending and can use that as leverage to bully her. Both of you need to learn how to make decisions together rather than playing chicken with your lives. I think cancelling these subscriptions isn't nearly the same level as saying, I don't want to work anymore. Edit because some were confused, I meant work like going out to earn money. It's clear that running a household is also work. Also, these decisions are something that you should make together with your partner, not alone. And Midwest Paige Turner says, you're the asshole, but not necessarily for the reasons you think. Also, I'm not ruling on the overall stay-at-home mum thing, as that wasn't your question. Here is the bottom line. You took a shot at services that you had a reasonable expectation that she would miss, on purpose, and probably at least a little because you knew or expected it was important to your wife. You can't make those kinds of financial decisions alone. You were technically partners, even if you both aren't acting like it. To be clear, she had no right to push this on you. But again, I'm ruling on your specific actions here that you are asking us to judge. One thing to consider, albeit temporary, is that small child daycare is ridiculously expensive. On average, in the US, daycare is $210 per week per baby. Let me do that math for you here. For 2 babies, it would be $21,000 per year. And this is indeed the average. Many places are much more expensive. Plus, there would be additional costs that doesn't reflect. Would you go out to lunch at work, more at work, if you no longer have time to pack a lunch, or pick up a to-go coffee? What about your wife? Would she do the same? How about gas and work wardrobe for your wife? Employment itself comes with significant costs here. Can you guys put this conversation on hold for a couple of years, or talk about the plan for when the kids are in school? You are at a phase of parenting that is awfully expensive for everyone, and it might make for a happier marriage if you guys talk about concrete future expectations rather than making changes now to irritate each other into compliance. Though I highly recommend considering a vasectomy if you're done having kids after discussing with your wife. For what it's worth, I think you would be shocked at how much your quality of life is reduced if you did have your share at home. All that stuff you don't do is indeed work. Please spend some time reflecting on your dismissal of the work she is doing. In closing, you guys need to talk. Talk lots, talk long, talk honestly. Use empathy and whatever insights you can provide to come up with a shared vision of the future, or else your marriage is probably doomed to be unhappy at best. It seems like many of the respondents here have never stayed home with small children. As a mother of twins, I will tell you, a job is vastly easier than keeping a nice home and raising young kids. I just made that. I just cleaned that. I just cleaned you. I guess I will clean everything up and start over because you honestly don't understand what you just did, and I still need to get calories that hopefully I don't produce into your body. I'm not going to lose my temper because I need to conserve my energy. Bedtime isn't for another 4 hours. My partner won't be back for another 2. I wonder what I should make for supper. I'll start that after I fold the towels. The big report for Friday? I'll proofread it for the 4th time by Wednesday. I just had a conversation with an adult about adult things. Gosh, it's sure nice to start and finish things. I like being able to use my brain. I watched my toddler nephew for the weekend. I decided to randomly start counting the number of times I picked up the same toy and put it away. I stopped at 20 times by lunch, and if I hadn't, either me or another adult would have stepped on them and cursed loudly. Am I the asshole for telling my parents I will have sex in their house whether they like it or not? I, 22 female, have a generally good relationship with my parents. We all get along, but they're a bit more conservative than me. I recently decided to move back to their city for a job offer that I took. My parents haven't been doing too well financially and asked me if I wanted to move back in with them for a while. I figured why not. I pay part of the mortgage, and in exchange, don't need to do as many chores as I would usually have to do. About 6 months ago, I started dating my now boyfriend. He lives a few kilometers out of town, so it makes sense for him to stay the night at my place and not the other way around. The other day, my parents approached me and told me that they don't want him to stay over anymore because they don't want their daughter to have sex in their house. I was a bit taken aback and told them that I'm sorry, but I'm an adult, and it's not like we're loud or anything. They basically said their house, their rules, to which I just laughed because I pay 40% of the mortgage payment, and if it wasn't for me, the house would likely not be theirs anymore. So I told them the my house, my rules BS wouldn't fly with me, and if it bothered them so much, I would just get my own place like right now. But I certainly will not be told when I can and can't have sex. Now they're upset because they think I'm trying to blackmail them, but I'm like, mate, I'm paying for this place, so I'll screw whoever and whenever I want. Am I the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. My parents think I'm an asshole because it's disrespectful to them if I don't respect their authority in their own house. Look, OP, you make a good argument. You've fought your case very well. I respect you for that. Not everyone can cop a good shag under their parents' roof, and that is understandable. I do agree that if you're paying 40% of the mortgage, that you get to do just as much as they do under their own roof. I'm sure if the ball was in your court, they'd think you're an asshole for saying, oh, well, I pay 60%. You two aren't allowed to shag under here. It's more mine than yours now. Anyway, I'll leave it to you. Not the asshole. Now in the comments, Gigi Park says, not the asshole. Normally, I would say don't have sex in your parents' home, but you're paying 40% of the mortgage, so they've kind of lost the high ground. Or what if she told them she'd only have sex 40% of the time? Okay, not the arsehole. Not the arsehole. This living arrangement was at your parents' request because they needed help paying their mortgage. In this scenario, you aren't their daughter. You're their housemate who is paying 40% of the mortgage. If they continue to give you grief, move out. Exactly. It's emotionally complicated, but legally, you're a tenant paying the rent, and that comes with rights, including the right to do what you like, within reason, in the space you pay to rent. Not the arsehole. And I disagree with other commenters saying that you're a jerk. 1. It sounds like OP is respectful until her parents pulled the "our house, our rules" card. It is not only their house now, they have a tenant. And 2, her parents are claiming that she's blackmailing them. This is far from blackmail. OP just told them that she'd get her own place if it bothered them. This is a very reasonable reaction from OP. Agreed. The idea that she's disregarding her parents' authority is stupid. Parents don't have authority over their adult children just because they are parents. They can have rules for their house, and their children can decide if they want to abide by them. OP has said that she doesn't accept those rules, and therefore chooses not to live with them. The issue comes in that most adults living with parents are doing it because the parents are financially supporting them. But here, it's the other way around, and OP is doing her parents a favor by supporting them. And now on to the update. Hi guys, my last post got more replies than I thought it would, hence the update. You may have guessed it, when I made the post I was pretty upset about what had happened. I've since calmed down and thought about my options. Since no one knows how much longer my parents need help with the mortgage for, I decided to move out. If I had known it would be 6 months or even a year, it would have been different, but I don't want to stay indefinitely. I think moving out is better for our relationship, since they can't seem to understand that I'm an adult who is used to living by herself, paying my own bills, and most importantly, having a certain amount of freedom. When I let them know what I'd decided, they obviously weren't thrilled. But in the end, they understood and agreed that it's for the best. I suggested they could rent out my room to make some extra money, and it seems like that's what's going to happen. The house is pretty nice and in a good spot, so it shouldn't be too hard to find someone. As for myself, I'll be moving into my own place again. I'm currently looking at some houses and apartments, and it looks like I'm either moving to the CBD or a beach suburb. That's all, guys. It all turned out pretty well, I'd say. Mbop Doombop says, I had a kinda similar situation to yours. I once paid my mum and stepdad £800 a month all in to live in their house that they were struggling to sell after they moved. There was a little bit of friction with them coming round and telling us to keep the place tidy and wash our dishes, because one day someone might want to come round and visit on short notice. One day we all had a big sit down and my stepdad told us we were caretakers, not tenants. And I told them I was leaving immediately. You pay caretakers. I've forgiven them since. Ancient history now. Still galling when I remember it. So many parents want to charge rent and then be all like, my house, my rules. If you're charging any amount of rent, it isn't only your house anymore. What are they going to do if they rent out the room and the person living with them has a guest or sex? I'm not a lawyer, but they may not have legal grounds to stop that happening or evict the tenant for doing so. I'm glad it's worked out for you, but your parents may need to consider whether or not they're actually prepared to share their home with someone else. The original post said they don't want their daughter having sex under their roof. Having a renter and some random person may not be better, but it is different. Our next post is titled, Am I the arsehole for respecting my late wife's wishes about keeping her family out? My wife unfortunately passed away last year when our daughter was only 3 months old. It was very difficult to get through, but my little girl and I are keeping it together. My daughter is 16 months now, and there's been pressure from my wife's sister to let her side of the family see my daughter. The issue is my wife had absolutely no contact with her family since she was 18, so 16 years of not seeing them. Her home life was something that she never wanted to talk about. It always made her upset, so I never pushed her to tell me. All I know is that they were manipulative and abusive in some form. She left as soon as she was 18, changed her last name, and never spoke to them again. 4 years ago, she got into contact with her older sister, and she's the only person my wife allowed into our lives. By that, I mean we met through video chat, but never actually in person. We still maintained contact after my wife passed, and we met a couple times before and during my wife's funeral. My sister-in-law called me a few weeks ago. She mentioned her parents would really like to meet their granddaughter and want to start over. They didn't attend my wife's funeral because they knew she wouldn't want them to be there. One thing my wife always made clear is that she did not want them near our daughter, ever. Telling my sister-in-law this, well, she got very upset. She said it's been years, and yes, her parents were awful people. Again, won't say exactly what they did, but losing their daughter has made them reflect on things, and they want to meet my daughter since my wife never gave them that chance. She's still trying to convince me, and so far I've said no. Each time I just feel more and more bad for denying them, but it's what my wife wanted. Her parents found my Facebook, and I'm pretty sure sister-in-law might have told them, and I've gotten dozens of messages begging me to let my daughter know her mum's side of the family, and that I shouldn't keep her from knowing her grandparents for past mistakes. None of them will leave me alone, and sister-in-law has said a few times that I may be grieving losing a wife, but to have some empathy for them losing a child, because right now, I'm being too heartless for denying them the chance to meet the only piece of my wife they have left. I'm at my wit's end with this because I'm not sure if I'm being an asshole or not. I don't know the whole reason why my wife never wanted to see them again, and even if I did though, I'd like to still honor her wish. The way they are being, however, makes it hard not to wonder if I am. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the arsehole. I think I could be an arsehole for respecting my late wife's wishes, but going against what her family wants. Look, OP, your wife didn't want to tell you the reasons and what they did to her, and these people will not tell you what they did to her. That tells me what they've done is something completely unforgivable and absolutely warrants them being disconnected from. Possibly even goes into the realm of these people deserve jail time for what they've done to her? Do you really want the possibility, even a smidgen of a possibility, of that being repeated on your daughter? Because I feel like that is what is to come in the future. I'm gonna say not the arsehole for respecting your wife's wishes. Now in the comments, Birdie Pet says, not the arsehole. Quote, all I know is they were manipulative and abusive in some form. The best prediction of future behavior is past behavior. Quote, none of them leave me alone. I'm at my wit's end with this because I'm not sure if I'm being an arsehole or not. You're getting a glimpse of their manipulative tactics. And quote, one thing my wife always made clear is that she did not want them near our daughter, ever. Then honor her wish. If the family really didn't attend the funeral to respect her wishes, I'm sure they'd do the same here. Don't let them near your daughter ever, OP. And talk to a lawyer. The death of a parent can be grounds for grandparents' rights. Look, grandparents' rights don't supersede parental rights in a case where there is a living and active parent though. Edit to add because of all the similar replies, I'll just put this here. I'm using OP's post as the hypothetical that my comment references. There isn't a statute in the USA that will force a parent to give visitation to the grandparents given the OP's situation. Grandparents' rights are obviously real, they just do not apply here, presuming that OP is in the USA. PugLove91 says, not the arsehole. Do not let them have anything to do with your daughter. The last thing you want is to allow them to have a relationship with your daughter, and then after a while you see exactly why your wife didn't want anything to do with them, because depending where you live, if they have an established relationship with your daughter, they can go for grandparents' rights. As of right now, they have no grounds. Cut the sister-in-law off too. She's just giving you a taste of how toxic the rest of your wife's family are. Protect your child. And OP replies, thank you for the advice. With everything on my plate, it's just been so overwhelming, and now this whole situation. I want to be able to honor my wife's wishes, whatever the reason was that made her cut all contact with them. And do not believe the parents' crap that they're grieving the loss of their child. They abused her and lost her completely 16 years ago. They deserve nothing. The fact neither your wife or her sister can even dictate, in even a vague or more generalized way, the abuse that occurred, means it was truly horrendous. Tell your sister-in-law this is a permanent and hard no. And if she cannot accept and respect that fully, which means providing no information to her parents, then she cannot have contact with your child either. You need to be very careful with her, even if it appears she's going along with this. You'll likely need to cut her off too anyway, as she's already shown that she's on their side. The part where she left at 18 and changed her last name tells me that it was really bad. Not the asshole, block everyone and move on. And now on to the update. Thank you everyone for all the lovely comments and support. I was really worn down with this whole ordeal, so all your input was very appreciated. There was a lot of you that expressed your concerns about what my wife's family's intentions were and warned me about taking precautions to keep my daughter safe. I have taken these into consideration and have made steps to ensure they have no access to any information that could disclose our location. And yes, in the end, I did decide that it was best to cut off all contact, not only with my wife's parents, but with her sister too. I tried to get through to her many times about why I'd like to respect my wife's call on this, since she knew her family best and what they did. Despite all the reassurance that her parents have changed, she still refused to actually say what went down, so that was not at all convincing for me. Once I blocked them all, I was getting calls from different numbers the following days. I sent one final message to her sister stating that they're never allowed near me or my daughter, and if they ever tried to come harass us, I will get the authorities involved. Since then, it was radio silence for the last couple weeks, but I decided to play it safe a few days ago and changed my phone number. I've also deleted my Facebook since I don't use it that often, but have put my other social media accounts on private. I got so many great suggestions from many of you about how to make sure they have absolutely no access to my daughter, so I really appreciate that. I've saved a few of these comments in case I need some extra tips in the future as my daughter gets older and starts school. Since I last posted and have cut contact, I feel like I can finally breathe. You have no idea how stressful and draining the whole thing was for me, so really, thank you for all the help. I've been more at peace putting this all behind me and focusing on my beautiful little girl. Just wanted to leave this update since I know there was a lot of concern about how this would all play out. Thanks again, internet strangers. Now in the comments, please tell me that you have a will and a plan if, God forbid, anything happens to you. These people have shown themselves to be untrustworthy in concerns to your child. And OP replies, "Oh, absolutely. We already had one prepared before my wife passed. My daughter's godparents, my sister and her husband, would be the ones who would look after her." And passing along advice, get more. It's the advice given by a lawyer to my best friend, mother of my godchildren, in order to ensure her abusive mother-in-law and stepfather-in-law never get custody if something happens to her and her husband. She and her husband were encouraged to have a bench 3 deep to show the extent to which they don't want his mum and stepdad to get custody. The list is her parents, his brother, who suffered even worse abuse for being gay, and then me. They also have a letter being held by the lawyer who wrote out the will explaining the abuse he suffered at the hands of his mum and stepdad, and pictures of them acting in a reckless manner. One photo includes clearly visible pot, tons of bottles of vodka, and messing around with guns. It would make it quite clear they aren't to get custody. And another commenter says, "You can tell you did the right thing because they were already bringing a lot of bad energy without them being in yours or your daughter's life yet. And now never." Quote, "You have no idea how stressful and draining the whole thing was for me. So really." So very true. My God, I didn't realize just how exhausted I truly was until after I completely blocked them off. And please realize that if in the future the sister-in-law reaches out to you and decides to tell you the whole story, it is likely she is lying. Realize that it was such a horrible thing to happen to your wife that she couldn't even speak of it. The fact that even after she'd passed, it haunts her family and has become unspeakable is enough to never give them a chance. It would probably all be a lie anyway. What happened to your wife never has to happen to your daughter. You will do your best to protect you both, because that's all that matters now. I'm proud of you for cutting them off and making clear boundaries. Hopefully your daughter learns as she grows up that they are not good for her. Best of luck. Am I the asshole for insisting my sister gets a prenuptial agreement? My sister and I are property investors who own 6 investment properties together. I know how the internet feels about evil landlords, so spare me that, please. That is not why I'm here. We started with one house to live in, then bought lots of cheap houses and flipped them for rental income. We're doing well financially because of said houses. My sister is getting married. Wedding is later this year, pandemonium dependent. I'm helping her plan, and we were going through a to-do list, seeing what's left to be done. She mentioned caterers, venue, invites, etc., and asked if she'd forgotten anything. And I said yes. Prenup. And we both sang, "We want prenup, yeah!" like the Kanye song, and then laughed. She moved on to the next item without actually addressing it. I leave it for then, and we go our separate ways. I text her later in the evening and say, "Hey, my friend used a really good lawyer to draw her prenup up, so let me know if you want me to ask her for deets." She replies she thought I was joking, and she's not asking her husband to sign a prenup. I replied I wasn't joking, and I must insist he signs one. She calls and says it's not my place to insist. I say it is when our assets are tied together. She asks me if I'm trying to say something about her future husband. I say I'm trying to be realistic and smart, then it all goes to hell. She starts yelling at me about being rude, jinxing her marriage before it began, yada yada yada. I say either she gets a prenup or we transfer all property to my name and I get one if I ever get married, and then I hang up. I've been bombarded by family saying her future husband is a good guy who would never do that if they separated. Well, if you guys needed a laugh, there's your joke of the day. He sent me a text admonishing me for hurting my sister and calling him a gold digger. He thought I liked him. I'm not backing down on this. Am I the asshole for how I went about it or wanting one? And edit to add, this has gotten bigger than I anticipated. Thank you for your input and comments. Delivery wasn't the best, I concede. I'll be getting in touch with a conveyancing solicitor soon to help protect our assets. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. Because my sister is upset and I'm not budging. People think I hate her fiancé and don't approve. That is not the case. I'm just being smart, but people have gotten into such a kerfuffle, it's making me wonder if I'm the asshole. Now in the comments, KMAT says, "No assholes here, but have you seen a lawyer about your options though? Surely there's some agreement you and your sister could sign that would at least protect your half of things. You are not the first person whose business partner has gotten married." And OP replies, "I'll look into it. Thank you." And someone replies to that, "Yeah, depending on country and state, I'm fairly certain an income or investments before marriage or dating belongs to the original owners and investors and not the spouse. But I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word for it." And someone replies to that, "But as property flippers, there's new properties being bought during the marriage. The siblings need to move the business assets to an LLC, and it would also allow them to determine what happens when one of them wants out of the business or dies." Blacks in Flux says, "If you want to be smart with your business, be smart with your business. A prenup for someone else's marriage isn't necessary. Talk to a business lawyer about getting paperwork written up that states that if she gets divorced, your portion of the profits don't get touched, or however it needs to be worded to protect the business. Make sure the proper protections are in place for your business instead of demanding your sister do something that is not your decision. You're the asshole." And OP replies to that, "I'll definitely look up the law around this and look into engaging a lawyer. Just don't want to further drive a wedge between us." So, you wanted to make sure that your sister and her husband had a legal agreement, but you don't want a legal agreement with her. OP replies to that, "When did I say I don't want a legal agreement with her? You said that you don't want to drive a wedge, and this entire post is about how them not signing a prenup would affect you and your shared properties, which means that you and your sister don't have anything official drawn up that protects you. And OP replies, I don't have anything against the many suggestions to create a contract and business of some sort that protects our assets, nor did I mean to imply that I did. I think you're still overstepping by talking about protecting our assets. You get to protect your assets, and she gets to do with hers what she sees fit. If she wants the laws of marriage to determine what happens to her assets in any event, then that's her decision, not yours. And now on to the update. It's been about 6 weeks since everything went down. I need to clarify a few things. I can't afford to buy her out, so that's not an option. She also doesn't want to sell because they are long-term investments for us. It wasn't a case of we each own 50-50 in the properties. Between us, we know that's the case. However, legally, sometimes I own 75% to her 25% and vice versa because of our financial standing at the time that we purchased the properties. I would stand to lose a lot if her marriage went south because some of the more expensive properties she holds more equity in. The properties that have been paid off, we've been able to change the deeds to, but those still mortgaged are that way at the bank's insistence. We have transferred all the properties into a trust. It is a legal protection that outlines how everything is split, including clarifications on who owns how much. It says that spouses are not entitled to anything related to the houses. We've also decided to end our business ventures together. We'll keep managing the properties, but we won't buy any more together for the sake of the relationship. We are doing okay. Still not as it were, but that is to be expected, I guess. Her husband-to-be is still withdrawn around me, but honestly, I don't care. Their wedding is going ahead as planned later this year, hopefully. And thanks to all who offered advice. The laws in my country are a little different, but we found a solution. Update over, short and sweet. Now in the comments, Accomplished Son asks, I'm curious. This protects you and your sister if your marriages go south, but what if your sister has kids and then dies? Is there a provision for her husband and kids to benefit from her portion of the partnership? And OP replies, the children inherit her share of the houses under guardian of a lawyer until they're of age. Someone else says, I'm glad that you managed to work it out. I have a hard time understanding the problem of signing a prenup. If their relationship is as sturdy as they claim, I would think that it could withstand signing a piece of paper. If it's not, one is probably a good idea. I would never get married without a prenup. If it goes south, I'm leaving with what I came in with. Nothing more, nothing less. You truly never know how a person might change. Hell, they could suffer a brain injury and turn into a completely different person. I'm still leaving with my house, my money, and my dog. I was completely upfront with my partner on the debt I owe, and was the one who told him how he could be on the hook if we got married. I also strongly suggested a prenup for us if it doesn't work out. You go in having these hard but honest conversations because as someone I love, I want what is best for them. My dad secretly developed brain cancer, screwed around with my family's money, and then died. 5 years later, my widowed mother has dug herself out of the massive debt that my dad left her in, although she certainly won't be retiring at a normal retirement age. She was a hard-working, money-savvy person, and it all went down the drain in a few short years because my dad gradually lost his sense. I could see getting a prenup to prevent something like this from happening to myself or to my future spouse. Most prenups wouldn't prevent that. Oh god. I'm so glad you stood your ground. My husband was in a partnership with 2 partners, and when one partner divorced, his wife got half of her husband's stake in the business. It was such a crap show. It is still a crap show, but not because of her. No one wants to be in the business anymore, and they're in the process of closing down. But the one partner that got divorced is adamant that he doesn't want to let go of the business. It's a huge mess. So good on you for protecting your half and your future. I hate the crap about how it's mistrust to get a prenup. It's common sense, and in your case, it's not just your sister's property and wealth at risk. People change, especially if there's a divorce. My ex has done things that absolutely have shocked me since I filed for divorce. The money was all mostly his, from work. We were both dead broke students when we got together, but he's treated our kids like crap. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever if I had had any assets before we married, he would have taken everything he could get, just to be mean, because I wouldn't let him screw anyone he felt like and stay married. He is not the person I married. And if your sister's fiancé really had no interest in your properties, he would sign the prenup. Same for anyone else asked to sign one. I'd sign in a minute if I met someone new that had assets to protect without feeling at all insulted. 50% or more of marriages end in divorce no matter how much in love people think they are when they say their vows. It's just life, and they need to grow up. Our next post is by user Angolozzi, titled, "Am I the asshole for not giving my room to my foster sister even if it'd make life easier for my mother? Hey Reddit, I, 17 male, have lived in the same house since I was 2, when we inherited it from my paternal grandparents, and have always had the same room. Being so young, I never got to choose my room when we moved in, but honestly I think I got the best one. It's right next to the garden, close enough to the bathroom that I don't wake anyone, and there's enough space for my bed and a desk. However, my mother wants me to move out to give the room to my foster sister D, 9 female. To be clear, D has a room. My biological sisters A and B have moved out, and while A's room has been turned into a new office space since we're working from home, D has been given B's old room. It's a little smaller than mine, but there's still more than enough room for her to put all of her belongings, and my mother has let her paint it whatever color she wants, although it's not perfect. D has recently been complaining that the room is too cold at night and that she struggles to sleep. My mother has offered her additional blankets, but they don't seem to help. So my mother has decided that she wants to move D to my side of the house, and consequently me into D/B's room. I, however, do not want to move. D is only here temporarily, so it'll be a lot of hassle to move my things out of my room and back in whenever she leaves again. Also, my mother and her social worker allow D to scribble on the walls in crayon, and I don't want my bedroom covered in poorly drawn cats and fish. My mother is unhappy that I'm unwilling to move, which I understand as she has to put up with D's complaining, but I don't think that I should have to sacrifice my room. B came over for a barbecue, and she and my mother lectured me on my selfishness, and apparently while I was stopping D burning herself on the barbecue while getting food, they were complaining about me and my attitude. I understand that my mother would prefer I agree to swap rooms, but I really don't think that's the solution. D has been complaining about a lot of things lately, so I wouldn't be surprised if she's just going through a phase or acting out. B has messaged me a few times to tell me to make life easier for our mother and that it's only temporary. So Reddit, am I the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I may be the asshole, as her complaining is clearly bothering my mother, and there aren't many solutions here. Now in the comments, it's Bobby Doe says, not the asshole. Tell mum to invest in a space heater. This. You can easily get safe space heaters for a decent price, and have it set somewhere that the child doesn't fiddle with it. Most these days have safeties, so that if the kiddo knocks it over, it turns off automatically. If more blankets isn't sufficient, a space heater will do the trick. Shoving the other kid in the cold room doesn't resolve anything, and just enforces that if the kid whines enough, they get to abolish boundaries. If this is a temporary situation, uprooting OP's zone twice over isn't really practical. And if they do it once, how often is their mother going to do this again in the future? Not the asshole. They even make ones with a thermostat that will shut it off once a room gets to the set temperature. They're awesome. We have these. Our house has poor insulation, and the bedrooms get freezing while the living room, where the thermostat is, stays cozy. Didn't even increase the bills much. Not the asshole. Changing rooms isn't gonna fix anything. I think you're right that the kid is just dealing with a lot, and complaining is part of that. But every little complaint doesn't need to be met. A space heater could help her out just as much without kicking you out of your room if they really want to do anything about the cold. I mean, if she's a foster kid, then she's probably testing this family. I'm not saying testing in a bad way. I think it's pretty natural for a kid who had an unstable early start in life. She's basically trying to see how responsive they will be to her needs, whether they will follow through or let her down, and possibly also finding out that she might be able to get away with quite a lot in a family that is trying to make up for a rough background. AKA, it's about the bedroom, but it's not about the bedroom. Foster sister is definitely testing the foster parents' boundaries, but the foster parents are also pushing that onto the OP. I think it's fair for OP to say that this is a hard line for them. Not the arsehole. And OP replies, yeah, I think it's likely she's testing boundaries. B never had an issue with the room. Cheers. And now on to the update. Hey Reddit, thanks for all the comments and suggestions on my post. I really appreciate it. We looked into it, and although many suggested it, Dee would not have been allowed to have a heater in her room at night, as it is a hazard, and usually she doesn't have an issue in the room until long after she's gone to bed, so it'd be pointless to heat up the room in the day. As someone here pointed out, my room has a door to the garden, and allowing foster children unsupervised access out of the house is never a good idea, and I doubt the social worker would have approved. I did point out my mother's hypocrisy, as many have suggested, at refusing to give up her own room, and she seemed to drop it after that. So many people had suggestions, and I tried to look into all of them. One suggestion was a weighted blanket that someone described to feel like a hug, so we've bought one of those. It was the equivalent of $27, so not a bad find. But unfortunately, that didn't seem to help any more than the other blankets. We also gave her my old hot water bottle. It's got one of those fluffy cases that looks like a penguin. But that didn't work either, and she still didn't want to sleep in her bed at night. However, someone suggested a blanket that looks like a mermaid's tail, so we bought one, and she absolutely loves it. She's had the blanket for 2 nights now, and there's been no complaints, so we're hoping that that has been sorted. Also, in regards to my relationship with Dee, some people commented that I harbored resentment, and I want to make it clear that I do not. I know it's not her fault my mother makes weird decisions on her behalf, and I don't blame her for being fostered. I took a commenter's advice and made a pillow fort with her, and we hung up fairy lights to try to make the room feel more like her own, and I bought her some stickers that she's now covering her headboard with, so she seems to be doing alright. I'll admit that we're not as close as my biological sisters and I, and that perhaps I could make more of an effort, but I have got a lot going on right now, and she doesn't seem to mind. Cheers again, Reddit. And now in the comments. See, this is such a beautiful example of being caring and responsive towards others' needs while maintaining healthy boundaries for yourself. If you had given up your room, you likely would have felt frustrated and resentful, which I don't think would have helped your relationship with Dee. But I love that y'all kept trying to find something that would make Dee feel better. She's lucky to be with such a caring foster family. And OP replies, almost definitely. Although I don't think I'd have blamed Dee as much as I'd blame my mother. Cheers, mate. You seriously have an amazingly mature attitude and perception of this situation. I wish you all the best in this world. And OP says, thank you so much. Someone else says, hey, you could try sealing around the windows in the room too. It can make a huge difference in keeping in heat. Just some white silicone cork into cork gun, super easy and doable. It's made a massive difference in my old ass house. This is a good idea. Also, I was sleeping for a while in a room that had old windows, and the cold just came right through the glass. I got some insulation sheets that goes over the glass, and they really helped keep the heat in. Although with summer right around the bend, it might not be necessary right now. Am I the asshole for telling the teacher to stop making comments on my wheelchair? I'm 18 female and have a pretty messed up pair of legs, have had since birth. I can walk but am an ambulatory wheelchair user. I'm currently due an upgrade for my chair. I've had it close to 7 years and it's a bit messed up. It's gotten pretty uncomfortable and it makes noise, but like I said, I've had it 7 years and I've grown rather attached to it. We're saving to pay for the new one at the moment. I have one teacher, my English teacher, who constantly makes comments about how banged up looking it is, and gets pretty pissed anytime I dare move and it makes noise. She says it's distracting. The comments about the appearance of the chair annoy me a lot because it's hardly going to look brand new after 7 years of constant use. She made a comment this morning along the lines of, you really should get a new one. That one looks like it's about to collapse under you. I got really mad about this and I said, you know what? If you think I should get a new chair so bad, you can pay the nearly $4,000 it's going to cost, or you can stop making nasty comments about something that literally doesn't affect you. She didn't really look at me until the end of class, but the boy who sits beside me said it was slightly asshole-ish, as she probably didn't realize how difficult the process was. Am I the asshole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be the prick for snapping at the teacher who only had my best interest in mind. I feel like comments like that don't actually have your best interest in mind, and while it's understandable that you did snap, maybe it was too harsh, but I don't disagree with you, OP. I feel like you shut them up properly and got the message across that replacing that isn't cheap or easy. So I'm with you on this one, not the asshole. Now in the comments, not the asshole. It's bizarre and so rude to comment on someone's wheelchair. Has she just crawled out from under a rock? Of course wheelchairs are expensive. I would reach out to the principal just to be sure she doesn't hold this against you come time for grades. Exactly this and not the asshole. I don't get what the kid next to her was on about either. It doesn't matter what the teacher did or did not know, because ignorance is never an excuse for causing harm. Very often, people expect someone in a marginalized group, like wheelchair users, to assume that everything that is said to them is good-intentioned, even if the person was wrong, so the affected person is expected to gently educate them, even if they've heard the same ignorant statement 10 times that day alone. In this case, it may have been that the other students hadn't really noticed any of the other comments that the teacher made and just heard the OP explode at the teacher for one well-meaning statement. He still should have kept quiet though, since even that one statement was out of line. I think of my wheelchair as an extension of my body. If someone comments on how cool it is, I take it like someone saying, "Wow, your hair is so cool, I love the color," and don't see it as rude. But if someone says, "Wow, your hair looks like it's just gonna fall off your head, you really should get a new haircut," then yeah, that would be really rude. That's always the rule of thumb that I give people when they ask if it's okay to comment about mobility equipment. But again, that's just me. Some people might not like to be reminded about it at all, but my latest wheelchair costs over $12,000 and is bright candy purple. If people didn't comment on it, I would be sad because I love talking about how cool it is, just like I love when people comment on my purple hair. Not the asshole. Mobility aids are often expensive and hard or slow to get the right fit for the individual. It doesn't take someone with vast medical knowledge to know this, and even if it did, she's an adult and is supposed to be a professional. It's not acceptable for her to pass comment on any aspect of a student's appearance. And now on to the update. Hi there. It's only been a week since my original post was up, but I have an update already. I'm sorry I couldn't respond to each comment. There was a lot of them and I got a bit overwhelmed. I decided to do what a lot of people said I should, and I reported the teacher who made the comments to my principal. But over the past week I've kept note of other comments that she's made to me and other students. The teacher is on a temporary suspension while she's being investigated, but since she holds a PhD, it's highly unlikely she'll be fired. The principal was absolutely appalled, but it seemed like it wasn't the first time he's heard about this. I'm just assuming he didn't know the full story. Anyways, that's my update. Not as absolutely mental as some of the ones on here, but it's pretty positive. Now in the comments, great news. Even if she isn't fired, good for you for sticking up for yourself and asserting your rights. If they gave her a suspension that quick, I'm guessing she's gonna be real close to being fired. Not necessarily. This kind of suspension, usually with pay, is common in public-facing union roles, such as teachers and cops, when there's a complaint or allegation made against them. The person can't continue to work during the investigation because if it turns out the complaint is true, the bosses would be in trouble for letting this person continue to interact with kids. But if the complaint isn't, then by suspending, ETA without pay, then the person would have been punished when they did nothing wrong. So they're in a sort of purgatory during the investigation, so they get suspended with pay until the investigation is over. As a teacher, I can confirm this. A teacher went on a paid suspension while she was investigated for kicking a student in class in front of other students. She left bruises on him, and he actually came to my class after it happened. Despite having several students as witnesses and the bruises on the student's leg, the union managed to get it dismissed because there wasn't enough trustworthy evidence. Bruises could have come from elsewhere, student witnesses could have been biased and lying. So she came back to work. However, her contract did not get renewed at the end of the year. Back to the original topic. Even if she isn't fired, I'm glad you stood up for yourself and that you know other adults in your life are on your side. That's something that you can be proud of. It doesn't need to be dramatic to be satisfying. And even if she isn't fired, she hopefully has received the message that her comments were way out of line. Teachers should never comment about how a student should just get a new XYZ, especially in front of other students. People often have broken and worn out things because they can't afford a replacement. I had a teacher with a PhD in high school, and she got fired because she was calling people's emergency contacts late at night to complain that students weren't turning in homework. She saw a student get burned while doing an experiment. This was a science class, and she did nothing, and the student had to wait for their next class to go to the nurse. Never say never. Our next post is titled, "Am I the asshole for shouting at my friends for calling my mum a maid? I am Korean, while my stepmom is from South Asia. I was hanging out with my college friends while on a Zoom call. We were just talking crap and hanging out. I was in her home office, as it is pretty comfortable. My mum came in to get something from her office, and a friend of mine joked that he didn't know that I was bougie enough to have a maid, and I found that a bit off-key and racist. They saw a brown woman doing work and thought she was a maid? She's actually a lawyer. I told them that she was my mother, and they started to laugh and make fun of me for pretending to be poor while I was rich. Someone said something like, 'You don't have to pretend that your maid is your mum.' I saw red and cussed them out and yelled at them. I called them a bunch of assholes and morons and told them to go F themselves before cutting the call. I don't like cussing people out, and I'm usually pretty laid back. My girlfriend was in the group and she told me that I should have talked things out, and yelling and screaming is never the solution, and that she liked me for how laid back I was. She was pretty shocked by how angry I got. I know what they did was wrong, but I feel guilty for losing my cool and not handling it in a more peaceful manner. She also said that I should have specified that she was my stepmother to clear the situation up quicker. Edit. All of us are in the 19 to 20 age group. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the arsehole. She was pretty shocked by how angry I got. I know what they did was wrong, but I feel guilty for losing my cool and not handling it in a more peaceful manner. She also said that I should have specified that she was my stepmother to clear the situation up quicker. I kind of agreed that I lost my cool and started screaming. Personally, in this situation, I don't think it matters that you lost your cool and started screaming. They continued to say racist crap like that, and by the sounds of it, they were looking for a reaction from you, and they got that reaction. You're a good person for standing up for your mother and trying to clear things. They are just being ignorant assholes, it seems, in this situation. In my opinion, it is more than acceptable to lose your cool while defending your mother and your family. So I'm gonna go with not the asshole. Now in the comments, Fashion Busking says, "Not the asshole. Your friends sound super racist. Find friends with better personalities who are not flagrantly racist." And edit, OP, friends. That would include your girlfriend. She somehow believes that instead of being angry, that someone should deliver a racist insult at your stepmother, that you should instead coddle them with calm words and understanding. That's problematic, and unlikely to contribute to a meaningful relationship. Understand that you're free to dump someone for any reason, OP. This is the way. I mean, can they seriously not comprehend that a South Asian woman could possibly be anyone other than a maid? That is deeply disturbing. It's especially disturbing that they accused you of being racist. Maybe an email to them clarifying what went wrong would be useful for your peace of mind, purely because when shouting, people don't always hear what you're saying to them. But no apologies from you. And your girlfriend's reaction is odd. You should specify that she's your stepmother because somehow that would cure their racism? From the sounds of them, it's more likely they would start making mail-order bride jokes than be like, oh my god, can't believe OP can't take a joke. Tone policing when someone is confronting racist stuff is horrible. You have a right to be angry, and your girlfriend getting upset because you didn't handle your friend with kid gloves is gross, and you should tell her that. Girlfriend thinks OP being angry about racist and classist insults is a bigger sin than the people being openly racist. Says all you need to know about her priorities, really. Not the asshole. People love to criticize reactions, but say nothing about the actions that cause them. For real, I know they were being racist and demeaning your mom, but you were rude. About how the people on Reddit vote. Oh, you mean this guy was bullying you? Well, I vote everyone sucks here because you defended yourself and that makes you just as bad. That crap is just bonkers. And not the asshole. Your friends are racist and classist, and your girlfriend should have understood how deeply affected you were by their casual cruelty, especially if you're normally laid back. There was a good meme on here earlier that said, when it comes to intolerance, we don't spill the tea, we throw the cup. Good on you for defending your mum, whether you consider her step or not. And now on to the update. I was overwhelmed by the support I received here. I really appreciate it. However, I did realize that my response was a bit immature, and I should have been able to deal with the situation less emotionally. I did take the advice given to drop this group of friends. I mostly just ghosted them and decided to pick and choose who I will stay in touch with. Honestly, I don't feel like I lost much. I need to be a better judge of character. My girlfriend and I are on a break, and I think I will break up with her. She's a really kind and generous person, but she's also someone who is very timid. From the conversation we had about this issue, what I've realized is that she will never get this. She thinks that the better option would have been to just talk it out with them and ensure that they understand why they were being jerks. I don't want her to speak up for me. I can do that, but at least she can support me when I do defend myself and my family and not try to drag me down. I really loved her, but I don't think I want to be with her long term. Someone advised me to have dinner with my badass mom, and I did make my parents dinner. It was nice. Now in the comments, Hexabear says, congrats on the realizations. Self-reflecting and realizing where you are becoming incompatible with people is always hard. But I've become so much happier with myself after going through that process a few times. Here's hoping you make some better friends. What a nice update. Good on you for standing up for your mum and yourself. Sorry things don't seem like they'll work out with a girlfriend, but I think you made up for your lack of maturity before by recognizing things won't work long term and deciding to end it instead of letting the relationship peter off slowly. And for what it's worth, they acted like total racist assholes, and you defended your mom. You don't have to do that quietly or timidly or politely. We all need to stop holding the hands of racist people and start calling them to task. Well done on you for both speaking up and cutting them out. And our next post is titled, Am I the asshole for not inviting my sister to my wedding? This might be a bit long. I, 27 female, have been with my husband Jay for over 10 years. We got married 6 years ago, but only did it through court, and we never had a wedding. We always said later, but timing was not on our side. Well, it finally is. We decided to have our wedding ceremony and reception later this year and invite our closest family and friends. We were doing our guest list and decided that my older sister would not be invited. She has been a toxic person in my life since I can remember. To name a few things, when I started dating Jay, she used to tell him that he could do so much better than me. I've never been someone that wears a lot of makeup, and Jay has always known this. She used to tell me that he was going to leave me because I didn't take care of myself. I've suffered with an eating disorder and have done inpatient. She told Jay that I was crazy and shouldn't be dealing with me and should just leave me. When I was at said inpatient, she tried to use me to get an excuse for her job so she wouldn't have to do something she didn't want to do, all under the pretense of helping with our girls. This was my second day there. When I told her I couldn't, she called me selfish and asked why couldn't I just do this for her, and didn't reach out the 2 months I was in there. And just so much more. As the years have gone by, Jay has stood up for me time and time again and doesn't let her run over me, something I've had trouble with. She hates this. She mentioned one time that he shouldn't get involved in family/sister matters. We had a traumatic childhood, so I felt like we just had to be close. I think it's part of why I had such a hard time cutting her off. Anyways, last Thanksgiving we got into a fight. Jay and I tried to have a civilized conversation and put all differences aside and move forward. Did not go well, and she played victim at all times. Jay and I knew we tried. She brushed it under the rug, and a few days later was back to normal. After that, a month later, Jay had to leave for 2 months for training, and I stayed home alone with my 2 girls. She made all these promises of coming to visit us and to keep us company, and so did her husband, my brother-in-law. They ended up coming to our state and then kept making up excuses as to why they couldn't come. She didn't talk to me until she went back to the state that she lives. I was annoyed because they also promised my 6-year-old and then just left her hanging. After they went back, she texted twice, and I briefly answered once, since I was annoyed, and honestly didn't want to get into a fight. A week and a half after the texts, the girls and I got into a car accident. The car was totaled, and it wasn't pretty. Thankfully, the girls had minor injuries. She never reached out, never cared. Mum and younger sister came to help and called her on FaceTime, and she gave me an attitude. It was like something clicked and I was just done. She's a negative and toxic person for me, blood-related or not. Obviously, I told my family that she will not be invited, and they know everything. But they want me to be the bigger person just because she's your sister, no matter what. And just be the bigger person again. I've stood my ground, but am I the arsehole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the arsehole. I've always been the one expected to keep the peace with my family. We had a rough childhood, and my mum always entertained in us that we needed to be together. I've always been the peacekeeper and start questioning myself because of it. Now in the comments, Kettlewise says, not the arsehole. Be the bigger person shouldn't mean inviting the company of a toxic and negative person, even when they have family. Certainly not to an event that's supposed to be a celebration of your marriage. OP is already the bigger person. She doesn't need to do more for that, let alone make her wedding more negative. Being the bigger person is supposed to mean not retaliating and being petty. Choosing to distance oneself from a person after they showed utter disregard for you and your child is being the bigger person in many ways. I don't see OP bad-mouthing her sister or trying to make other family members take her side, which is certainly the right and non-petty thing to do. Not the asshole all the way. And OP says, that's exactly what I told my mum and younger sister. They kept saying the same thing. She's still your sister. I told them how funny it is that they don't consider my feelings, but are considering hers on my wedding. Their response was just that, what if she calls you to talk then? All we're saying is that she's family. I told them no, and I wouldn't answer because she does things when it is convenient for her. Emerald BG replies to that, well, if she's still your sister no matter what, she'll still be your sister even if you don't invite her, right? Not the asshole. Being the bigger person is always a way to just make the more accommodating person do something they don't want to do, just so others don't need to be uncomfortable. It's your wedding, and the most comfortable people there should be you and your husband. Not the asshole. Be the bigger person equals lie flatter, doormat, so we don't have to be uncomfortable. Your sister is a trash person who has made no attempts to make amends or apologize for her bad behavior. The consequence is she misses out on life events because she's proven herself to make drama out of nothing. If they try to guilt you with, "That's how she is," counter it with, "This is how I am. I won't be disrespected on my wedding day. Drop it or drop out." And OP replies, "Your first sentence made me legit tear up a bit. It's always been like that my whole life. I've had them say that, because of my mental illness, they have to walk around eggshells with me. When I asked when has that happened, they said it was when I finally stood up for myself and addressed how what they did made me feel." Well, yeah, that's because they see you as the pushover/easier one to manipulate to keep the peace. Don't let them walk all over you. They've been letting your sister do it because it means they don't have to put up with her because they assume that you will. Time to show them they're wrong. They can deal with her on their own time, not at your wedding. OP provides some more information in a comment further down, and they say, "I wish I knew too. Due to character limits, I couldn't go into detail about everything and could only provide a few examples of things she's done to me. The thing is, she's the firstborn and the oldest. She's always been the favorite. I've accepted it. Even people that know us, like other family members or friends of the family, know she's my mum's favorite. My mum will always back her up and find an excuse for whatever she does." To provide you some other examples, when I was pregnant with my second, I had a high-risk pregnancy. I was about 38 weeks along when she asked me to take care of her dog for a weekend while she moved. I was already dilated, and doctor said I could go at any moment. I told her I could only do those days since I also have a cat and they didn't get along. She kept saying, "Yes, just the weekend. I'll come over at night and feed him and clean everything." That did not happen. He was with me for a whole week. She did not come once, and I had to clean everything while my doctor strictly told me to rest as much as I can, and since my husband is military, he wasn't here most days to be able to help me. I kept telling her to come and she ignored me until my husband texted her husband, then boyfriend, that they had to pick him up because I was literally due any day. She came in mad AF, saying, "Why couldn't you just do this for me? It was just a few days and now I have to take him back." I've already had difficulties and no one stood up for me. When I explained what had happened, my family just said, "She's stressed because she's moving." So I'm okay with whatever difficulty comes. Honestly, your mother and sister are lucky to be invited. They've been bully bystanders the whole time. And now on to the update. Okay, so first of all, thank you all for all of your comments. My husband and I loved reading all of them and all of your advice. Now, I don't know if anyone wanted an update, but I still wanted to give one. My husband and I sat down and we talked about everything. We are genuinely done with my sister and have no desire to have a relationship with her. Due to the character limit, I couldn't really get into everything she's done, but it has been so much, and for the sake of keeping the peace, I always tried to be the bigger person. But not anymore. I can't keep being the bigger person for others. I have to be the bigger person for me, my kids, and my husband. And that means walking away from such a toxic person. Anyways, I spoke to my mom. I told her that I was done and nothing was going to change my mind. She has been toxic for way too long and I won't allow her to do it anymore. At first, she kept saying how as a mother, it hurt her to see her children like that, but I shut it down quick. I told her she's entitled to her feelings just like I am to mine, but I won't hear it anymore. My sister is out of my life and she won't be invited. If my mum and my other sister, we'll call her M, want to come, they are more than welcome to, but if they ever mention it again, they are out for good. I also told her not to get any crazy ideas, that if my older sister showed up to my wedding, I would kick all of them out and that I won't feel sorry for it. The conversation went well, and she understood where I was coming from and said she won't talk about it or her anymore. My mum knows that when I'm set on something, nothing can change my mind, so she didn't even try. My mum and M are also on an information diet just because I want to keep things more quiet and between my husband and I. I also don't want my older sister knowing anything. That was pretty much it. We put our deposit down, so we're officially having our wedding after so long. Thank you all once again. And now in the comments, congratulations. May I also suggest that you consider hiring or asking several of the guys or strong women in your friend group to be bouncers if needed. Info does get around, and I'm not even implying that it might be on purpose. Your sister might check your mum's calendar behind her back. People who are this self-centered love to make waves. And OP replies, yeah, my husband and I already talked to some of our friends about that, and for the reception, they need specific tickets to get in, and if the guest doesn't have them, they won't get in, so security will be taking care of that. I love it when someone pushes the boat rocker off the boat. Well done, not the arsehole. And OP replies to that, this made me laugh, but thank you. Definitely felt good to finally put my foot down and say enough is enough. I'm sorry that you're going through all this, but I do think that you made the right call. Trust me, I understand. I haven't seen or spoken to my sister in over a decade, and my life is much better without her in it. Frankly, I never want to see her again, ever. I told my parents as much, and they thought that was terrible, yelled at me, and dragged my name through the mud on social media and with all the extended family. So now I don't see my parents either. Win-win. Life is peaceful without the crazies in it.